Hello everyone, welcome to the episode 10 of SpiritX podcast. We are in double digits. I congratulate to everyone, including myself. I'm glad we are building this with a good and steady pace. This podcast is envisioned like a very high quality and ambitious project. The beginning we were planning that just to start with my book and open some spiritual and life topics. But later we are going to bring some guests, we are going to organize some panels, so stay tuned. In the meantime, we are continuing with my book. I want to focus today on an important aspect of spiritual practice and spiritual life, but also of life in general. I want to discuss a chapter in my book which is entitled Practice and has a kind of dual meaning. It's at the beginning of the book. As of going through my book, we are kind of done with introductory topics and we are entering now a very exciting stage where we are really gonna kind of address a very important topic for spiritual search, but for life in general. So the name of the chapter is Practice, and it has a dual meaning. First meaning is the noun, so practice as the noun. So I'm going to describe what spiritual practice is, what are its distinctive feature. But practice also is here, has a meaning as a verb, so it's an imperative. So there is no spiritual success without a good and steady and nicely organized spiritual practice. So practice means practice as a noun, so we're going to describe it, but also as a verb, as an imperative. Practice has to be done. I like this chapter because there is a very close connection between spirituality and life. So what I'm going to say is applicable for spiritual practice and spiritual search and spiritual life, but it's also equally applicable to whatever you want to accomplish in life. So in that regard, we are having an important podcast and we are discussing an important chapter. So in my book, in this chapter, I define spiritual practice as a movement from identifying with your small self, which is ego, to identifying and living from a deeper dimension of your being, which in spirituality we call true self. So spiritual practice is basically a dissolving of your ego in the deeper dimension of your being, and practice is actually that path, and practice gives you those results that you live from a deeper and more fulfilling place within yourself and within reality. What's extraordinary about spiritual practices nowadays is this: never in the human history we had this many available spiritual practices to an average practitioner. Because of, in the 60s, many spiritual gurus came to the West, because in digital age the information flows really, really easily and freely, because more and more people are actually interested in spirituality. But in the regard of spirituality, and especially availability of spiritual practices, this is the best time that ever existed on earth. So I know that the world is going through a pretty rough transition, but I just want to point out that there's a lot of good stuff happening, either in some pockets or in some areas that are not necessarily mainstream, like spirituality. But in spirituality, this is extraordinary times and exciting times, and we should take advantage of it. There are a few things I want to discuss today about spiritual practice and about any kind of effort you want to make in life. And first one is this: for spiritual practice and forever you want to accomplish in your life, you need to create a proper structure. And I call that, in spirituality, I call it a spiritual container. And that can be applicable to life and whatever. And I studied many spiritual traditions: Hinduism, Buddhism, mystical Christianity, Taoism, Sufism, etc. But I found something extraordinary in Buddhism when it comes to spiritual practice. So in Buddhist practice, they talk about three jewels or three refuges, and those are Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And let me elaborate on those, and let me explain how that can be applied in modern day era and how it can be applied to some other areas than spirituality. So Buddha, originally in Buddhism, designates awakened awareness in the historical Buddha, and awakened awareness within each one of us that is not fully recognized. So Buddha, awakened awareness in historical Buddha, the awakened founder of the whole religion and system of spirituality, but deep dormantly within us there is Buddha, there is awakened awareness. We just need a teacher, a mentor, and a teaching to awaken that in us, and then we are awakened spiritual beings. Dharma, originally in Buddhism, represents the teaching with capital T, and that's the teaching that reveals to us the ultimate nature of reality. So originally, Dharma is the teaching that reveals to us reality with capital R. And in Buddhism, that's Buddhism. There are other Dharma teachings from various wisdom and spiritual traditions. Finally, Sangha is a group of spiritual practitioners that are passionate about discovering truth and spirit. So Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, think of it like a three-legged chair. In Buddhism, they call it a tricycle that is kind of stable. So once you have Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, your practice is very, very strong, and you can expect some really good results. So now, what I would like to do now is to apply Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha to the contemporary spiritual search, and also to extend it even a little bit more so that you can apply it to other areas in your life. So if you apply Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha to a modern situation, here is how it looks. So Buddha, in that regard, represent a mentor or a teacher or a coach or a facilitator that is helping you in spirituality, discovering your true self, or in some other areas, actually mastering certain skill. So let's say you want to learn how to cook, and there is a master chef, correct? So he has the skill, you are learning. At some point you have the skill. But without a teacher or a cook or a coach or a mentor, you would never get there. So whatever you want to accomplish in your life, if you're serious about it and if it's significant for you, you should have a mentor. And spirituality is no different than that. So a good mentor in spirituality is a real difference. I had some phenomenal mentors. I had my root teacher Mokshananda, who revealed to me my true self. And I'm deeply grateful for my root teacher and for all of the teachers I encountered on my spiritual path. So what is Dharma in the contemporary modern context? So nowadays we have teachings about ultimate reality which are not the mainstream, but they are coming to the mainstream. And then there are lots of other teachings about relative reality. So I studied philosophy, it's a phenomenal field. Sociology is a phenomenal field. Psychology is today necessary. So biology, chemistry, etc. So we have relative teachings about reality, we have ultimate teachings about reality. When you combine them into a kind of meaningful, holistic whole, you are really winning the game of life. So if you put holistically various teachings and apply them into your life, it's going to be, trust me, a meaningful life. So in terms of teachings about relative reality and ultimate reality, we are at a very, very, very rich stage. It's just not fully utilized. So that's another great news about present-day situation, in spite of the meta-crisis we are going through. And finally, Sangha, in a more modern-day contemporary context, is a group of people that are passionate and support each other about certain goals. In spirituality, that's certainly a spiritual search and spiritual enlightenment. But let's say you're passionate about sports, so you clearly have a coach, you clearly a sport, but you have a group of people that are practicing your sports. Let's say you are super passionate about hiking, so there's a group of people you hiked with. You are passionate about, I don't know, playing cards. You need some people to play cards. So Sangha is any kind of group that support each other on the path towards certain goals. So again, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, whatever you want to accomplish, whatever you are passionate about, this three-legged structure makes sure that you're going to succeed. Spiritual search is no different at that point. I did apply this early on in my spiritual practice. Results were fantastic. I strongly suggest that to my students, clients, and the clients of my nonprofit Spirit Without Boundaries, and the results are really, really amazing. So I think today we touched something which is very simple. It's not a rocket science. It can be applied to spiritual search, but it can be applied to anything else. If you want to learn how to ride a bike, you need a teacher. you need some sort of teaching how to do that. And if you're practicing with the group, you're going to ride your bike really, really well. And spiritual search is no different than that. Teacher, I strongly recommend. Applying good teaching necessary, and group of practitioners really, really, really necessary. Another thing that I just want to mention at the end when it comes to spiritual practice is that it requires repetition. It requires consistency. It requires regularity. So if you want to have some results with, let's say, meditation, which is a superb spiritual practice, you need to do it regularly. Otherwise, there are no results. So with my nonprofit, when we go to schools, when we go to organizations, actually we don't offer anymore just one-time workshops. We usually, the only thing we offer as a start is a series of workshops for that reason. Without regularity, you don't have any results. So with schools, we usually propose 5 to 10 half-an-hour workshops, and with organizations, because we work with grown-ups, we suggest 3 to 5 one-hour workshops. And by definition, we get good results. And with the vast majority of those clients, we actually continue for a long time. So when it comes to practice, when it comes to your effort to achieve something, regularity, consistency is the key. And like in every other episode, we usually have an experiential part we finish. So today is no different. So I invite you to a very, very, very simple practice. We're going to do a little reflection. I'm going to invite you to a few times breathe in into your belly and out, just to enter the space for practice. Thank you. And we are going to do a little reflection on how in your life you benefited from any effort you made or any practice you made. It can be education, it can be sports, it can be finance, it can be relationships. So any kind of effort you did, you applied certain teachers, you had certain mentorship, you invested time, energy, and money. So just notice, we all do that. Remember your mentors. Remember the folks you've done some stuff with or accomplished some stuff with. And I want you to remember and acknowledge that the vast majority of those times when you were practicing something, when you were putting some hard effort into, were actually enjoyable. So remember and acknowledge all the good times you had with mentors, with various doctrines and techniques, and with various folks. And those enjoyable moments actually made you a great individual you are at this point. And that kind of application of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha actually never ends, and that's great. But just notice how the vast majority of that path was actually enjoyable. There were certainly some challenging moments, but the vast majority of it is enjoyable. So spiritual practice and any kind of other effort, for the most part, is enjoyable, and that's fantastic about it. So thanks for reflecting with me. Thanks for your attention. I hope this episode inspires you to practice or inspires you to make an effort in whatever you want to accomplish. If you need some help, myself and my nonprofit are available. Just contact us and we'll be happy to offer you whatever you need. Thank you for your attention, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.